Hi, welcome to another episode of Adventures in Glass with Doug. That's me. You may know that this is the channel where I post videos that show you how to take thrifted glass and create some unusual sculptures out of them. Some people call them totems. We have done hanging ones. We've done some that have been bird baths. We've done some that have had solar fountains in them. Lots of different choices, and it all kind of depends on what kind of glass you find and how you think you can craft it together into something. Now, I'm going to show you the basics, and perhaps you can take some inspiration from this. Hopefully you can find some interesting glass and try it on your own. You're not going to be able to duplicate exactly what I have, because chances are you're not going to find some of the exact pieces that I have found at my local Goodwill store. But it'll give you a little idea, inspiration, some good thoughts about what you can do. So anyway, what are we going to do today? Well, today is going to be a little different for sure. It's going to incorporate things that I've done before, but this one's going to be a bizarre design. And I've kind of gone back and forth with it thinking, I don't know, this is really kooky, but we'll do it anyway and see what you think. All right, we're not going to finish it all in one day, in one sitting, because I have to let parts of this dry. It's got a number of pieces that we want to make sure are sturdy, glued together properly, and ready to be assembled. Speaking of which, one of the things that I recommend is obviously find some interesting glass that you can work with, but you're going to need to have an adhesive. What I use is a 100% silicone. I buy it in these smaller tubes because it's easier to handle. You could buy a larger tube of it and use a caulking gun, but that's really kind of difficult to maneuver when you're working with some of this glass. If you can't find the GE silicone, look in the description posted below. I have links to where you can order that online. I have a number of other things you can order online too, just for fun. So let's see what we can do here. And what are the pieces we have? Well, obviously we have our adhesive, the silicone. And the pieces I have today are in the blue range. And they're kind of odd. All right, I've got obviously a shot glass that is very interesting. Got a nice blue cobalt color. I have a small dish that's blue. I have what is probably a vase that has some crackle glass texture to the bottom. I have another, I guess, vessel that is a nice blue with a sort of a white swirl through it. This I know is true colored glass. It's not painted or tinted on the outside, so that'll hold up really well. And then inside that, I've got something else special. We have some white mini lights. So, first thing we need to do today to get things moving along is to, and I've got a few other things to add some interest and surprise to this. So I don't have it all out for you yet. Now, when I use these mini lights, these little fairy lights, and they're pretty delicate, but in order to use them in something with this kind of volume, I want to make sure that they spread throughout, that the light is kind of evenly dispersed best I can. So what I usually like to do is partway into the string, I'll fasten that to the top, or the ceiling if you will, of the piece, just to get a little more, just so everything doesn't collapse down to the bottom. And this can be tricky to work with because these are delicate wires, but they're coiled, and which is sometimes good, but sometimes it's hard. Now, if you take this and twist a small loop, that will help when we go to glue it into a glob, if you will, a little bit of silicone. So I'm going to take and put a glob of silicone in the bottom of this, and then I'm going to stick the wire into that and let that dry, probably a couple of hours. And sometimes this is tricky because you don't really have easy access. This one I can get my hands in. Okay, I've put, oh, I don't know, like a gumdrop size glob of silicone in there. And I have a little stick to help me with this. Okay, a little tricky, but I think we've got that fastened in for now. We'll let that dry. And I can do one other part of this for you. We're going to take this piece. And one of the things you ought to keep in mind is that it's obviously you need to get all of this glass as clean as you can, especially the insides, because you're not going to get back inside to clean them later. So I've cleaned all these pieces beforehand. We're going to put this piece, this blue plate on top. So we've got an opening that we want to kind of close down. The way you do this is you take a bead of caulk around the top. I use a turntable to help me spin it around. Okay. In this case, I'm going to go upside down with my saucer. You could do it right side up if you wanted to. It depends on the look that you want. I've decided I want this to be upside down. But I also want to make sure not only is it fastened, but that it is as level and centered up as I can get it. Guess what? I'm going to put my topper on here, my shot glass. So I'm going to put another bead of caulk let that dry too. I've got more to assemble once this dries, but we'll leave it overnight and come back to it tomorrow and start putting the pieces together. I think you're really going to like this one. Stick around. We're going to close off this space with this glass disc, probably a candle platform. So I'm going to put that there with a bead of caulk, silicone caulk, and we'll let that dry for our next step. Okay, well, sometimes things don't always go according to plan, and this is a case of that. I had hoped to take the opening at the top of this blue vase and turn it upside down and match it to this blue disc plate to seal it off. But when I flipped it over and tried to get it to align, it was not going to stay vertical, upright. It was leaning to the side. No matter what I did, it just didn't look right to me. So my backup plan is to flip it over, put this upright, and then I had another piece I was going to be putting on it anyway, so I'm going to get that ready to go on. The only problem is this plate, which is really cool, it's like a sculpted flower, is not, it's rippled on the bottom, so it's not going to sit airtight on this vase. I was kind of hoping to be able to do that by putting this other disc on there. That didn't work. So this would be a piece that should stay inside. It's not going to be airtight. You're going to have gaps underneath where these petals are fluted around the edge. And that also makes it tricky to figure out where exactly to put the silicone in order to have contact points. So what I've done is looked at the places where it appears as though we have contact between the two pieces of glass, and I've taken some pieces of tape to mark that so that I know where my points of contact are. Hopefully. Now we'll see. I have my fairy lights inside. This is and a battery pack that will just sit on the outside of this. Unfortunately, there's really no way to hide that. But it gives me the opportunity to have this wire come underneath one of the openings in the ripples without it interfering. So, next big step here, if everything works, is to put my globs of silicone, and I'm having to make these kind of generous because I'm not exactly 100% sure of these contact points. Seems like I should have one more, but you know, I could have just put a generous amount on the rim, but I felt that would be a bit unnecessary. Okay, so we want to line these up best we can on top again. No. Well, it's not perfect, but it's, I think, the best we're going to do, given that we have a lot of ripply, uneven surfaces. And this entire pattern is not exactly flat. Okay, so for that step, we're just going to let things dry. I'll come back and I'll tuck in some more silicone underneath that edge to kind of seal it off better. And then we are going to put our top half on. I think you can kind of imagine how that's going to look, but we'll wait for the final reveal. All right, we'll be back soon. Thanks. Time to finish this project. I have my base ready. I have my top half ready to add on. I'm going to put a nice bead of silicone on the base. I'll admit this one looks a little different than most of my sculptures, but it to me looks like a big splash of water. We have the mini lights inside it that when it's dark, that'll kind of add a little glitter to the bottom, and otherwise we're in good shape. We have a nice piece here. We'll let this dry, and thank you for subscribing, for following along with these videos. I've got plenty more to do. Check out the ones that I've posted if you haven't seen them, and we'll see you next time.